We are live YouTube from the city of Benton Harbor, City Commission Chambers. Tonight we will be discussing 20 years later. That was then, this is now, and shaping the future. And this is in relationship to the 2003 social uprising, or AKA riots. We have with us Trooper Maurice Benton. Please come up as one of the panelists. But before we get started, we want to begin with an invocation by our senior pastor in the city of Benton Harbor, Pastor Willie T. Burton.
Thank you, Mayor. Gracious Father, we come today certainly to thank you for your love, your mercy, your kindness that you have shown towards us. And we know that we've came through many dangers, many toils and snares, but it was only by your grace that we have made it thus far. We thank you for the leadership of our city. And then, God, we pray now that as we look forward, that we won't spend all of our time looking in the rearview mirror, but looking forward to the things that can be accomplished. We pray that you bless us through this meeting tonight. We ask it all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. So we'd like to do a round robin where each panelist will have an opportunity to introduce themselves to our audience as well as our viewing audience. So I'm going to start on this end with our first panelist, and you have the floor.
Good evening. My name is Trenton Bollins. I am a former city commissioner of the Second Ward for Benton Harbor and currently the vice president of Benton Harbor Area Schools. I am also a former resident of over 15 years of Pavone, P-A-V-O-N-E, the 500 block, and I had firsthand experience of the riot, and that's it.
Thank you.
I am Deshauna Robinson. I'm the current president of the Board of Education for Benton Harbor Area Schools. I also served as the assistant deputy director for the Benton Harbor Housing Commission and was born and raised here in Benton Harbor, Michigan. So it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ronaldo Triplett. I'm a lifelong resident of Benton Harbor, Michigan. A member of the mighty class of 1978, Benton Harbor High School. We'll be celebrating our 45th year class reunion next week. I taught in Benton Harbor area schools for over 30 years, served as an assistant principal, director of student services, and eventually the principal of Morton Montessori and the principal at Benton Harbor High School. So the most important thing about me is that I love the Lord. I really do, and God has truly been good to me, and He keeps showing Himself over and over and over again.
All right, now.
Every day that He is able, so I'm honored to be here today. I was fortunate enough to, I guess that's later on in our questioning, what have you, but I was fortunate enough to be Terrence Sherman's 5th grade teacher at Martindale Elementary School. So that's basically who I am. Oh, I cannot forget this. I'm married to my beautiful wife, Marion, and I was afforded to have 2 beautiful daughters and a son. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
I'm Maurice Burton, retired state trooper, 31 years, and lifelong best class of Benton Harbor High class of 1976. We will be having our 65th celebration this year also, so we'll be getting together with the little younger ones from 78. We call them out, the younger boys. But to make a long story short, I was called in by the governor when the riots happened to get back in my home city where I was taken out of, for less than 10 months before the riots happened. I was in the school and in the city. And my post commander at that time thought it was necessary to put me back on the roads, and I begged and pleaded, please don't take me out of my community. And 10 months later, that long, the riots took off.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shokwe Pitchford. I am the County Commissioner for District 3, which includes Benton Charter Township, Hager Township, Sodas Township, and the Executive Director of both Berrien Forward and Berrien Connection, a pair of sister nonprofits. And I am newly appointed to the Community Corrections Advisory Board for the state of Michigan, overseeing the corrections of the state of Michigan. Also, since Mr. Tripp started the trend, I am blessed to be spending my life with that young lady right there.
All right.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Willie Burton, Pastor Willie Burton. I've been pastoring now at the New Paradise Baptist Church on Crystal Avenue, going on 53 years. I lived in the city of Benton Harbor since 1964, and the incident that we are looking back at, I was living on about a half a block from where the real crisis took place. That's at Empire and Broadway. I've lived at 800 block of Broadway since 68, I'm sorry. I moved there in 1968, so I've been there through it all. And so I'm grateful, certainly, to be here tonight, just kind of take a look back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Ron Singleton, current Commissioner at Large for the City of Benton Harbor, lifelong resident of the City of Benton Harbor, served in several capacities for the City of Benton Harbor, so I feel like I'm a lifelong public servant also. Retired police officer for the City of Benton Harbor. The young man, Terrence Sharon, I was very close to him. His brother, Renard Sharon, was one of the officers that I recruited during one of my tenures as chief of police. So his brother, another brother, Shannon Sharon, was married to a young lady that I raised as my daughter. So it's the experience that experiencing during that time kind of brought back some of the memories of a time before when a young man was killed in the city of Benton Harbor. And we'll get into some of that as we talk later, but lifelong public servant and law enforcement, doing it the right way was always my goal.
So my name is Marcus Muhammad. At that time, in 1993, I graduated with Terrence Sharon, Marcus Singer. We grew up, played on bar together, went to Markdale, and I currently serve as the mayor of the city of Benton Harbor. I came back home right after the riots in 2003. Went back to Chicago, but eventually came back to be the varsity basketball coach. Then I served as the city council, city commissioner, the mayor pro tem. I was elected mayor in 2015, was re-elected in 2019, and finishing my second term. So what we wanted to do was have a vast, diverse panel. Certain things in history deserve our attention, that we pause, that we reflect, and that we give wisdom and guidance and intelligence to the events that happened in the past. And it's very important in our African tradition, the concept of Sankofa, where we look backwards. And as Pastor Burton said, not to live in the past, but that we may be able to move forward. So on tonight, we would like to look at 2003 with the theme, 20 years later, that was then, this is now, and shaping the future. So the first question, anyone who would like to go first, where were you on this day? How did you find out about the social crisis or riots?
Well, Mayor, I think when I realized what was happening, I believe a friend and I was coming from fishing. It's kind of late in the afternoon. And so I really had to figure out how I'm going to really get home. I didn't know what was going on. I've served, as I stated, in this community in many capacities. I work with school desegregation program, and I've ran for the commissioner some years back during the Joseph era. And I had done a lot of things and did a lot of our job, but that night I became a fireman because I spent that evening, my son and I, on the roof of one of our members' house to keep her garage and thing weighted down so the house that's burning next to her didn't set her house on fire. So I was really caught up really in the middle of the fray. Saw some unusual things happen that I certainly wish had never happened. But I do know that people have a way of expressing their anger and what have you. And some will do it in one way and some another. But I do know that there was a lot of things that happened during that particular ride that I was sorry did happen. And but that's where I were. I was right in the middle of the fray. As I say, it was part of it just really happened right at Broadway in the Empire, and I'm only about a half a block off that corner. And so I was really caught up in the middle of the mix like that. But I'm still there.
Still there.
I'm still there.
20 years later.
20 years later, I shall not be moved.
Yes.
And Mayor, going back, these young men was introducing their wife. Well, I've been the husband of one wife for going on 66 years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's I think the right way to start off with that message from Pastor Burton. Who would like to jump in next? Vice President Holmes?
Earlier that morning, I'll never forget it, she's deceased. My aunt said, "Oh Lord, something's getting ready to happen," because she told us about sharing the situation. And we said, "Oh, we thought she was exaggerating and everything." Remind you, this was my second year living in Benton Harbor. I was a suburbs kid, St. Clair Shore. So then we went to church and everything. We were at Harambe Park. And we had a church picnic. And it was our teen Bible study, and then we came back. And as soon as we got closer to Benton Harbor, you could see the explosion of the yellow building that was on Empire and Broadway. Well, Empire and Pavone, how you describe it. You could see that yellow building exploded. It was a flames that you could see miles away, a cloud of smoke. Mind you, I was 12 years old, so we were kind of scared, like, what's going on? And her name was Daphne Weatherly at the time. She's gone home. She just said, "Plead the blood of Jesus." And we're like, what's going on? And then we seen all of the people and, all the houses on fire. So we hurried up and went home. One of my friends wanted us to come to St. Joe and spend the night with them because they didn't feel like we were safe in Benton Harbor. I was like, no, we're good. We woke up, I came home, woke up my mom and said, "Look outside." And the next thing you know, we see a white van. And it's a whole bunch of youngsters, I would say, They were older than me. They had T-shirts. They were beating on the van and everything, and they were going down to all the fires where the fire was and everything. We didn't know at that time we were living in a riot, but my mom said, turn the lights on so people would know we're in the house. Mind you, I was on Pavone. There was a lot of still abandoned houses next door to our neighborhood. And at that time, we were scared. And, the next day, we went down to the other end of Pavone driving, and my mom had Shirley Caesar. I'll never forget it. Shirley Caesar comes. She said, this community needs Jesus. And we're like, what's going on? We see all of these news trucks and we see the fire and everything. Because at that time, the firefighters weren't putting out fires. They were letting them just go out on its own because they could not get to it. And then I remember seeing some of my classmates and some of my neighborhood friends, their houses were on fire. And the next day, it was just still the same thing. And then the third day, you see the SWAT team, and they had the police line, and they would drive helicopters flying over and flying back and forth, driving back and forth like the routes through the neighborhoods. It was an interesting time.
Trooper Burton.
From the police standpoint of view, the question to me would be, why would this happen? I was in the community working. I was the first officer in the state of Michigan with the state police given the task to be a community police officer, period. That was the first ever. I have been enriched in the community. And why it happened was because the citizens were fed up with what was going on by police officers, not just necessarily all officers, because it really wasn't even Benton Harbor Police. Because I had been approached by several citizens in the community about this one police officer constantly antagonizing, unlawful stops, putting things on them, arresting them, prominent people, John Doe people, regular people, and I would tell them the steps to take to file a complaint on this police officer. Nothing was being done to that officer. That officer continued to antagonize the community. And the result of that, I kept hollering to certain people within my department till I hollered so much they removed me out of the community. And when that happened with T-shirt, that was the straw that broke back. It wasn't Benton Harbor police officers. It just so happened to be these officers. This officer was constantly picking on people in Benton Harbor, what we know to be profiling and making up things and taking laws into his own hand and arresting our people in our community unlawfully. And they were fed up with it.
Yeah, I like to kind of go off of what Trooper Burton was saying. As a former police officer myself and worked here in Benton Harbor, that particular night, though, I was at home. I was had been retired. They got shot in the line of duty, and so I was retired, but still had connections in the community because grew up here, and going back to what Trooper Burton, during them times, and previous to that, it was a culture in the police field that their success was more based on how many arrests that they got instead of how many crimes that they prevented. And I always said it was a good old boy mentality that festered over the years. It was just a culture of policing. people would begin to try to break it, but it was so entrenched that it was allowed to run rampant. And I spoke earlier about it, another incident, and it was early 90, probably around 92 or so, where a young man by the name of Norris Maven, got shot and killed unarmed. He was mistaken for somebody else and was shot and killed. The officer that was involved, the local prosecutor, ruled it a justifiable homicide. Clean, as they would say, a clean shoot. But so happened the state came in, and that was with the I believe the encouragement of some of the local people, and NAACP was strong at that time. Some of the pastors, they came out. I was a patrolman at that time in that incident, and the police culture then was, hey, let's arm up, and it was basically like, let's get militarized. They ordered shields, they ordered long nightsticks, and planned for an uprising, and was going to meet it with brute force. And it was a few of us that was in the police department then, Larry Allen, a guy by the name of Will Riley, both of them deceased now. Bill Elliott, he's deceased. We got together and said, hey man, this is going to be a bloodbath, man. And we don't believe that, this is the way to respond. And so we contacted some of the older folk, Will Branscombe at the time. He contacted Miss Mary Defoe, and some of the pastors got together, and they came out, in the evenings and start trying to calm things down and say, hey, let's let this process, take place. But when the local prosecutor ruled it, a clean shoot, justifiable homicide, tensions really started getting up then. But the state came in immediately and said, oh no, and they changed that and tried the officer. He was convicted, and that kind of kept things down. But that residue was still around, and things kind of changed for a little bit, but they went back to the old practices, and it just built up, and with the Terrence Sharon incident, it was just the flashing point, that happened. I got the call, saying that something had happened. A young man had got killed. It was being chased. We did have a no chase policy in the city too. And so all the questions was, just coming in. Why didn't it stop? Why did it, when it got to be dangerous, why didn't it back off? All those questions was coming up. But, people felt that it was, hey, we're going to get them at all costs. I began to talk with, there was a couple of other chiefs that were still in town, former chiefs that still lived in town. And we knew the family. Like I said, we knew no T-shirt. And his brother said, hey, we got to, get out and try to keep things, down too. But, it had bubbled up so high to the point where people just begin to, show out their frustrations. And all we could do was pray that nobody got killed. So it through those things happening, I think it did bring about, they'll bring people to the table to say, hey, this, we can't go on like this. That I looked at it, and later on, that time was our, basically our Ferguson, our George Floyd incident, so it could have been just as, they had more damage than we had, and it could have been those incidents, both of them, incidents I spoke about that happened here, could have been just as bad. but it was, by this being a smaller community and people knowing each other, it was the action that was taken, people getting out and trying to be the best to calm things down, I think helped out to keep it from being a bloodbath. One thing I heard that I said, I don't know what caused that, but they called me one day and said, the chief of police, who wasn't, from here, said he stood out in the middle of Broadway and Empire and racked off a shotgun, and some of the good old boys would kind of like applaud and say, that's what we want, it's like, okay, no, you need to, calm the situation down but that was the culture then, and they know they had to change. And are we, there yet? It's been some significant changes, but there's still a long way to go.
Thank you.
So I know others have indicated when they graduated. So I'm a proud graduate of the class of 2003. So I had literally graduated less than 2 weeks before this incident. So I was a newly graduated adult, I guess you could say. And at the time of the incident, I was at my grandmother's house. However, T-shirt was very close to my uncle, my aunt's husband. And he is a person that is very unshakable and strong and powerful in his character. And I was able to witness the anger and the frustration and the trauma of this experience through his reaction to T-shirt's death. And so I was able to kind of see firsthand that frustration that led into the riot. Now, I wasn't, of course, even though I was a grown, I was given a very strong warning that I was not to go down and attempt to participate. I was also on the Miss Benton Harbor court at that particular time. So I wasn't going to be in anybody's paper and presumed to be throwing a rock, but we did creep close enough to kind of witness what was going on. And it was one of the most life-changing experiences for me, because when you live in Benton Harbor, you kind of live in this bubble and you understand your community. The majority of the people in your community look like you. And there have been things like the riots in the 90s with Rodney King and things like that, but those things happen at a distance from you. So it was a very life-changing experience to see something that you see on TV and something that you assume only happens at a distance occurring within your actual community. But because I was able to witness that hurt and that trauma firsthand, it allowed me to understand that the incident that I saw on the news was not just an isolated incident that occurred in those communities, but that it was something that was national and had hit home. So like I said, it was traumatic for all of us and kind of shifted the way that we understood the dynamics of being a Black person in Benton Harbor versus the authority that was trusted in protecting us. So
I kind of remember, I don't really remember the term, I don't remember riot. I don't remember riot. I don't remember labeling it with any of those words. Rebellion, riot, uprising, any of that. I had just lost another former student. And many kids in this community say, Mr. Triplett was a teacher, was my teacher, or Mr. Triplett was I was a teacher in the school that they attended, but I wasn't their actual teacher. But he was actually in my class. And so my thought, I think I didn't realize what was really happening until the next day, because it was still going on. I just knew that Terrence had been killed. Sylvia, the Bond family, the Crenshaw family, I met them growing up in Benton Harbor in Little Italy, because I grew up in Little Italy on Miller Street and Rikers Street area here. So our family, the Shern family, the Hull family, the Archibald family, the Robinson family, the Crenshaw family, the Nunley, which is a commissioner, Mamie Yarbo's maiden name, the Nunley, the Robinson, the Hayward, the Haywood. So, you know, we had a very close-knit community down there. And Sylvia, his mother, was a part of that community. Elma Bond and Steve White, Elma was his aunt. They had participated with and were volunteers with us in Bard Elementary School in our 4-H program, which was led by Miss Lou Buchanan. So we were family. So my thoughts that night was what happened to Terrence. That Terrence was deceased. And so that's what I remember wanting to find out what happened. So I didn't know. So, you know, you're trying to find out what the family is, kids are. So I didn't have that piece at that particular time where, you know, it was a day or so later that I realized that, okay, this is still going on. And this is very, very serious. So I guess in closing, mine was more the family, the loss, the here we go again. And I started experiencing this trauma in 1972 on October 17th. As a 7th grader at Benton Harbor Junior High, when my cousin, Carlton Hull, was killed by the police. And so that was at a young age. I had already experienced that within my family. And so, yeah, that's where I was at that particular time. I really don't know where I was. I was trying to think when I saw the question, where were you? I was consumed with grief at that particular time. That's my story.
On that particular day, I would have been 4 years old. And unlike anyone else on this panel, I don't remember that day. But I remember where I was when Trayvon Martin was killed. Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, January 6th. So I feel the emotion of the moment, but I don't know the moment and how the calamity, the emotional turmoil that must have been going in your mind where, if I can just speak to the next question just for a second. It says, what is a riot? I truly believe from hearing everybody talk today, a riot is when your internal calamity becomes your reality. When you're so fed up with a situation that you have no other ability but to express it and push it out to the world because you're so tired of living in the chaos that you don't want to be calm at that moment. You want someone to feel what you feel.
Yeah.
And when people get so fed up with seeing someone get killed time after time after time, it hits so close to home that you cannot be expected to think rationally. Because yes, you can see it on TV and see it happen in the world and be upset. But when it's in your community, it's someone you know. I can't imagine what you all felt.
So for me, this was the second time that a classmate had been killed, murdered, tragic death, in terms of that close proximity experience. Eric McGinnis played for guard. Used to cut my hair and lived out in Benton Manor. Small, close-knit community. We all knew that he was murdered. No ifs, ands, two ways about it. No buts, nothing. He was murdered. That wound has just begun the process of healing. So even when my son goes to Silver Beach, I'm waiting for him to darken the door to come back home. And in his mind, Dad, you know, it's kind of a laissez-faire, I'm going to have fun. But the dark past in history, we all know too well. So when I got the news, my college roommate called me. He said, "Mark D, man, you need to turn the TV on. I don't know where you at, but Benton Harbor is on fire."
Mhm.
I said, "What?" So I turned BBC, British Broadcasting, which is international news. And it was a picture of Terrence Sherm, AKA T-Shirt. And that's the photo we used to try and get attention for those to come out or listen on YouTube. But I was in Chicago, and at that time I was more conscious as it relates to world affairs, historical. I had graduated from DePaul University, so I was in my young adult phase. But one of the strikingly interesting things that I could see is as tanks and armament was rolling into Iraq. Tanks, militarized armament was rolling into Benton Harbor.
Yes, sir.
And that said to me that not only is there a war being prosecuted 9,000 miles away, but there's another type of war, domestic, that's being prosecuted 90 miles in my hometown. So that compelled me shortly thereafter. I said, I'm going to return home. And I came back in 2003. And that's when I started my career at Benton Harbor area schools, teaching special education, middle school, basketball, assistant varsity basketball coach. Shoquay, Commissioner Pitchford led us into the second question, which is, what is a riot? Because we never categorize it as that. However, if you look at how it went out through the media, the word riot kept popping up. And that term riot is a criminal, because you can get up to 10 years in prison for inciting a riot. But if you actually participate, you know, so it gives label and characterization to how people are responding to a litany of abuses and injustices that have gone on for a period of time. what are the history of riots in the United States? It depends on how you look at it. The riots in Chicago of 1919, the 1968 riots after Dr. King was killed, or Rodney King, but there's always a situation that has precipitated this type of reaction from an oppressed and deprived people of justice.
I was just thinking, even if you go back to 1966, Cecil Hunt was murdered in Benton Harbor, and we had a riot then in '66, and that's when they made fair a one-way. It used to be, I'm talking like I know, but it used to be, from my understanding, a two-way. And my mom was telling us that he was murdered. So when you do look at the history, it's always in the African-American community of a murder. But when you look at a football game or something, and they're doing something, they're calling it, it's labeled different. Oh, a bunch of rowdy people are flipping over cars, setting cars up. Let that would be African-Americans. It's a riot. These people are out of control. They're dangerous. But it's only when we have something that is harmful or we're losing a loss of life. And in Benton Harbor, the past two incidents have been, again, Cecil Hunt, Terrence Sherman. They both were murdered by a brother of a different race. And that's when Benton Harbor uprised.
Civil unrest.
Civil unrest.
This is like when you read that definition, and I thought about it too. That is with that culture of policing that I was telling you about. That's probably some of the, that was some of the things that they look to have. Oh, this is the big one. We're ready for the big one. And calling it a riot also allowed for people who got arrested for what be civil disobedience, but got charged with, inciting the riot. Matter of fact, I know a couple of folks. There was a young lady who I thought she was, it was an entrepreneurial spirit. She gathered bricks, and was selling them to participants still, so they asked her up to throw, and they found out she did that, and they charged her with that, prison time, and I watched some of the world news too. One channel always did, the thing that was going on in Iraq, at the Pentagon thing, and they were sitting there in the, I guess the Situation Room or whatever they call it, and they was talking about insurgents, calling the people, Iraq insurgents, and they were saying, yeah, this is happening there. Not like in Benton Harbor, what's going on in Benton Harbor now. You in the war room, and you're talking about, something that's happening in Benton Harbor, and kind of comparing it to, something, a war going on. So it's, I do think, I think somebody else mentioned that, they do characterize things in Black communities to make it, larger than what it is. And I think it's a way to justify some of the reactions that they take,
And also when the state police came in, we had the first ever, at that particular time, we had a African-American director by the name of Sturtevant, and he knew Benny Bowers, graduated myself, was drenched in the community. First thing he saw, these ain't number young boys, these ain't number young kids. And so with our department, if you can look at it, they labeled it civil unrest because he realized these are number young people out here, and instructed Benny and I, you get out there and you go talk to them because you know them, and tell them, please don't come back out at night because of the pressure that was being put on. Stop them at any cost. And he felt within himself, I'm not going to do these young people this way. So what I did is myself, Benny, he gave us a plain card. And of course, I knew some of the ones when I'm standing there with my ride helmet on, and they was, you know, I knew them right off. So I went to some of them ahead of time, said, let me give y'all, and they got in the car with Benny and I, we drove them down, I said, and we showed them the sea of police officers down there waiting, with all, the, like you say, the armor to take. I said, please pass the word. Tell them don't come out tonight. We don't want any of our people hurt over this, what's going on. And we could talk about these things and get together later to see if it could be a change, because when they saw that sea of blue, and I was telling them from Coach Mo gonna tell you the truth. They're gonna hurt you if you come out tonight. And I was glad that they took heed, and they didn't, and they didn't come back out that night, because in their minds said, okay, we took the rocks, you know, we ain't taking hits no more. And our director saw that these were the young kids, and he felt that he had to do something to stop what could have happened, and I'm glad it didn't happen. Mr. Benton.
You know, as a young man, I love history. I love learning about the history of my city, but I can't help but to comment on the striking duality of hearing that there were tanks and officers in downtown Benton Harbor waiting for us to quote unquote pop off, when thousands of Trump supporters stormed the United States Capitol, and we could not get an officer to go into the building for hours. The striking duality of that sentence, where because we were upset that someone from this community was murdered, and we took to our streets to protest, to riot, whatever you want to call it. But tens of thousands of people can storm the United States Capitol at the direction of the President of the United States. And it took years to send them to jail. It took hours. There were calls directly to the Department of Defense asking, please send officers now. House of Representatives members underneath the chamber calling their families saying, you may not see me again. But when it comes to cities like Benton Harbor and the people in them, Black people specifically, we will send the government, we will send the army, we will send the police on the drop of a dime. Because the insurrection that happened at the Capitol, they were called protesters. Protesters.
Not right.
They're not rioters. They're called protesters.
Did more damage.
I'll leave it there.
Sure.
As this has really, really caused me to pause and to reflect when Reverend Muhammad was talking, and I closed my eyes and he brought up Eric. We're talking about Terrence, and then I saw Vernon red. And I had no idea, when I look at all three of those young men that I had the opportunity to coach basketball, 6th grade elementary nutrition basketball association. And I look at, and I think back, it was 92, 93, they all would have graduated around that time. And so they were in like the 5th grade, 85, 86, around there. And so when I look at those innocent young men, because as a teacher, and you see them grow up and whatever direction their lives take them, but I always see them before they were released into the world. So I knew these young people as innocent little kids growing up with dreams and aspirations. And so what Commissioner Pittsford said, who I also taught his father in the 5th grade, so I know how to spell Chokwe. Others did not. You know, how do you spell Chokwe, Chakwe, and Chakwo, and they were saying everything. I said his name is Chokwe. He ends with a W-E. And all of these kids, and so we said those young people that were out there, those were my kids who had become men, who had seen their classmates murdered and taken away from them. And now they were men. And so when you talk about it, like I said, for me, you say the riot, the word riot, because I you know, one thing that's so unique about Benton Harbor, one thing that I deal with today, we're talking about, this is just a little funny piece to it. Commissioner Singleton had brought about the entrepreneurship. When they Benton Harbor is very, Benton Harbor is something else. It's very unique and creative. And when I had never seen, I did get close enough to this particular time. And I saw them down at the charter school down in that area. They were getting ready. So that's when, and they were getting ready to come up, and I saw them. I was at a place where I saw them, and they were coming. They had their helmets on. They were, you know, marching with their shields and what have you. And they were throwing tear gas. Well, as they were throwing the tear gas, Benton Harbor was picking up the tear gas and throwing it back. And I remember them saying, retreat, retreat, because the tear gas they had for the people, they ended up not being able to breathe. And they had to go back. I'm looking, you know, when I sit back and think, where else but in Benton Harbor? They got offers from all over the world. I mean, they were picking up this tear gas and throwing it back. And that was a humorous moment in the midst of all this chaos. But again, it did not register to me until afterward that it had been, quote unquote, a riot. My brother was calling from Memphis because it was all over the news. And what's going on? Where's mama? Where's daddy? Where they at? I said, it's sitting outside on the porch. You know, it hadn't registered because the way in which it was presented, it was in a small area. Right. But when you looked at it, you thought that it was all over. Because they were, you know, those of us who had relatives and siblings and family from out of town, they thought the whole city was on fire. You know, and I know Mother Hill, I think about Mother Hill, I thought about St. Mark Baptist Church. I saw them press trying to come through. I remember Brian Melcourt. I remember the cars being attacked. But again, I didn't look at it. I just did not look at it as a riot. I'm sorry. I just looked at it as people saying, hey, enough. You can call it whatever you want to call it. You know, I was 6 years old in 1966. I was 8 years old when Martin Luther King was assassinated. I was a 3rd grader. I was here when they had the riots in 1972. That's right. When they told our parents not to send us to school. That's right. To protest. So I came up in an era where this is where we were trained and taught to stand with our resolve. So we were never confused about who it was, who we were. And we would say it loud that we were Black and we were proud.
One thing I remember Fox 28, they used to be a local news station here. And their vehicle, they had a Ford Escape. It got flipped over. And one of my friends that were elders from church, he was trying to protect the white lady because she was pregnant. And the crowd got so deep, he ended up helping her. But it just brings back flashbacks when you've seen on TV. That next morning, I was watching the Today Show, and I remember it clear as day. They did a thing about Benton Harbor riots, and we looked at it, and we're like, Mom, that's our backyard, that's our backyard. And literally, our backyard was on the Today Show, and we got phone calls from California. So it was like the tenacity and the strength, and you know, when you're bottled up with frustrations, you do have so much time and so much frustrations where you do lash out. But you do lash out and you do what you gotta do. And I understand, one thing I can say is staying on Pavone after that riot, well, civil disturbance, say what you want to say. I believe it was that Thursday, we had summer jobs. Michigan Works came through, Whirlpool came through. They had posters on stop signs, come down here for a summer job. They hurried up and I think it was like 300 young people got summer jobs. The street at that time was never really clean. All we knew is the city was cleaning the street, and I remember my mom was being nosy. She said, "Why are y'all cleaning the street?" Jesse Jackson is marching down. Next thing you know, a few minutes later, Jesse Jackson was marching down on Pavone, the governor and everything, and we were like, wow. It was just, to see some of that stuff. But, their voice was heard, and we can debate whether the results that we got were long-term, did it impact or anything, but something came out of it. And I'm gonna leave it at that.
Pastor Burke.
Yeah, I guess I sort of want to throw a question. I have two police officers here, ex-police officers, retired police officers. Am I wrong if I stand in my pulpit? Because I think the young man that we are talking about when the riot began, his motorcycle went into a house over here on. Is it wrong to stand in the pulpit and say to these young people, if a policeman is trying to pull you over, don't try to outrun him, just stop. You gotta weigh the odds of what's going to happen. Because if you're driving a hoopty, and these police are driving these souped up cars they have, 9 times out of 10, even if you're out in an open area, you're not gonna get away from them. I just heard the other day, some kid trying to outrun 130 miles an hour, trying to get away from the police, but he finally wrecked the car. So what's the most obvious thing? Face the consequences, or face the idea that I could lose my life in what I'm doing.
So I wanna, before we haven't heard from my school board president, and then we're gonna come back to that question, and Trooper Burton and Commissioner Singleton, and dive right in.
So I wanted to more so speak to the intentional use of the word riot by some media outlets. One thing I've noticed is that utilization of the term riot is meant to discount the cause that the people are concerned with, as well as diminish the morality of the individuals that are responding. Mm-hmm. And often outside entities may question, why does a certain population of people choose to riot? But they don't understand what it feels like to be voiceless and powerless. And so when you consider it, you can imagine that we are boxed within this house that's a structure of inequity. And we have asked to be freed. We have prayed to be freed. We have advocated. We have voted. We have tried to appeal to the moral consciousness of America. We've done everything in our power to try to get out of the structure of inequality. And then something happens similar to an incident with T-shirt, where it's as if the heat is turned up to a blaze within the building. And then you question why individuals may choose to bust the windows out or break the doors down to try to get the attention of the society around them, that we are in a structure of inequality. And so I think that sometimes utilization of that word riot focuses on the response versus what caused the action. And I know that the question was not posed to me as it relates to, shouldn't a person just stop? And I know legally that's the thing to do. But you also have to realize that we live in a country where our Black bodies are often considered worthless. And individuals may be in fear of the outcome of stopping, because you can lose your life or have legal consequences if you keep going. And in the day and age that we are in now, which is not necessarily new, you can lose your life if you stop. And I think it's often a traumatic experience, and individuals are not sure which way it's safe. Should I try to escape, or should I take the chances and not know what the outcome of me stopping is? And I know that I'm not an officer, but I understand from a societal point that that's sometimes what leads to individuals choosing to run. It's almost like a PTSD response. And I'm in no way advocating for violence or for individuals to run from the authorities. I just want to make sure I say that.
Well, I do want to say anything you say and do will be used against you in social media.
Back to Pastor Burton's question, I think it's absolutely important that you preach that, from a law enforcement perspective, and knowing, because you're not going, they're going to keep coming. They're going to keep coming. Pick your battles. I taught my sons and young men, hey, look, you got to pick your battles, even some that I have arrested, had to tussle with a little bit. I said, now, when you get over here to this county, don't you pull what you just pull now, because when you get over there and do that, they gonna beat you down. It's gonna be 10 or 12 of them jump on you, because some of them just waiting for that. Live to fight another day. That's my motto. This situation, okay, if you don't feel like you're being treated right, but don't do anything that will get you killed, because you can't fight dead. You get your ticket or whatever, you go fight, you go into court, although we, have our issues with the justice system. But being alive, me, here, and I've been gone for a while, but I still, every once in a while, relive the wail of a mother's cry from having to come into a scene, to identify the kid, that's something that just would never leave, but I say live to fight another day, keep your conversation, as lawyers tell you, anything you say, you have the right to remain silent. So remain silent, do what they, okay, and then you take it to court, you get, and do what you can. But running, there's incidents where, we seen where the, I think out in, South Carolina or somewhere, where the good thing somebody was off to the side taking a video with an officer, shot the guy in the back, and then planted, taser on him, he took off running. But now you got to get me, you're going to have to get me looking at you, my answer to that is, we need more of that to say, hey, look, don't just make rash decisions and take off. They tell you that if you're driving, try to get into a, populated, area or something, get, lighted area, is, been in the dark, alley somewhere and saying, okay, should I stop here or something, but, my short answer to that is continue to tell them, hey, look, don't contribute to your own demise, because they get to tell your side of the story if you did.
So we're gonna jump a burp, and then we're gonna move, because our time is.
Mine will be 2 minutes. You put me on the spot. It's that long. I'll keep prepared because of lack of knowledge. And you keep telling that, Pastor, my wisdom came from when I was growing up. What happened to my friend, your cousin Carlton Hull, that stuck with me because he was on the football team with us and all of us was tight. And for him not to show up at practice that morning because we had split session registered in my mind. Well, the law was passed in the state of Michigan that after that happened to him, police officers couldn't shoot at anybody running away from him because of Carlton Hall. So I knew growing up, you don't have to run. The worst thing they can do to you is take your car or put you in jail. So I was brought up in you don't run when especially, your life can depend on you if you take off and run. So you keep preaching that because I used to be in the classroom teaching them civic law as a state trooper in the classroom. And I got beat down by my fellow officers telling them I'm giving away the secrets of the police because I was educating the students in the Benton Harbor area school districts about their rights as a citizen. So keep preaching that. And now we have no police officers coming in our schools teaching our kids.
Your Honor,
Yes.
I know as the assistant principal, just recently serving in that capacity, we were in a discussion where we talked about, we noticed kids that would say, all right, young man, put your phone up. And they don't. Stop. This is in school, 11, 12, 13 years old. And you allow them to continue. What do? See, it's those little bitty things. That's why the ball has been dropped. When our parents and grandparents were coming up, they said, stop, you stop.
Yeah.
That was it. And so now you have a generation of people that people are just saying, well, that's just so little. No, it's important. When authority, not just the police officer, when anybody, adults, anybody in an authoritative position over you, they tell you to stop. Stop chewing that gum. Stop talking. Stop running. Little bitty things like that they keep on going now. And nobody says anything to them. You're just going to continue to see these types of things. It's not, we're talking about it at a level where now it's tragedy. Or, people making this decision whether or not to stop or keep going. But it's the little things, it's like you get a hole in your blue jeans. And we were little because they didn't have money all the time. They put patches to stop the hole from growing. Okay? We have to do our part as well because as President Robinson said, some stopped. George Floyd stopped. He stopped. He surrendered. He did stop. So I would say those conversations have to be balanced conversations when it comes to it, because when we're talking about, yes, you respect the police, you respect your teacher, you respect your elders, but it's difficult in these times when people, our children, are seeing police who are not respect worthy. They see people in their families, adults in their life that have not presented themselves in a manner that they should be respected. They don't understand, why should I respect you? Why should I respect this? Why should I, just because you're an adult does not warrant you being respected because of the way in which you present yourself. Yeah. So that's what I think that's what we are.
But
Two.
may I add,
If
I
I
tell
could-
young people to stop, people to stop if the police
Stop.
get to a place where there's somebody else, go to a likely place, get to that position. Especially if you're gonna try and get away, but at least get to where there's someone else there to kind of see what happened. I know the fear now is what's happening when people are stopped by the police.
Well, I think that when I looked at, because I'm trying to get into the psychology and the psyche of why would somebody want to run.
Right.
And see, that's a space and place that I don't know. Right? But I thought about the Fugitive Slave Act. where it was against the law to run from the slave catcher, right? And if you got caught, you was getting killed, or we saw groups. So I said, man, that's really something. And in this injustice system with the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery, except if one is duly convicted of a felony, then now I can make you a slave all over. You see what I'm saying? So you got a system that's set up to make our young black men felons, which is making them a slave again. Of course, I'm going to run from that, especially if I'm looking at 20, 30, 40, 50 years for crack cocaine possession, which was a law put in place to do just that, sponsored by the current president. So it's I'm gonna tell my son, Pastor Burton, if the police tell you to stop, stop. But my reality may not be somebody else's reality. And I hope my son would stop. But Tamir Rice, the young man that was just 14 shot in the stomach, you know, so this is a real issue that really needs to be discussed, not just at the police level, but even in the prosecuting, because as you said, the prosecutor, it was justifiable homicide. And then the court said that the officer was not guilty of manslaughter, but was guilty of reckless discharge of a firearm, but didn't spend the day in jail. The one brother was in his house eating cereal, sitting on the couch, and the officer went in the house, killed him in his own house, and just got out of prison to live and walk free.
And the thing with Terrence, as you hear the police officers, the retired police officers talking about the culture of the police department at all levels where they work as black men in these various spaces and places, which we have to suffer through on many different levels all the time, that this police was known. So why would you think Terrence was not afraid of this police? Because this police had repeatedly done dirty things to citizens of this community. So why would you stop for a lawless police officer? So you understand what I'm saying? But I do, you know, what you do, you still teach stop.
Yeah.
Right.
But you still, because I can only imagine.
It's a bigger problem here.
Yeah.
So I want to just, because we want to talk about then, we want to talk about this is now, right? Which we are doing that in shaping the future. So it's a lot right here. We're not going to get, I do want to touch on Terrence, because the thing about it is he was the vessel that God used to highlight and bring forth a greater problem. So the question is, who was Terrence Sherm, aka T-Shirt, to you, and who was he to the city of Benton Harbor or this community?
I do have to leave, but I want to answer this question. Who was Terrence Sherm
To you.
to me? He was probably one of the smartest boys in that 5th grade class. We had a math system program that we called 712. Through the entire year, he scored 100% on 712 tests throughout the entire year. Never less than 80, 90 on the pre-test. The post-test was 100% all. He was a genuine honor student. He had the most beautiful penmanship. He was very conscientious. He had a heart, he was so, I'm telling you, he was so respectful and so thoughtful of his classmates. I mean, like, he was a leader, he was quiet, but he was a leader. And I'm being honest. I can call him out. I can see Marcus penmanship. I can see Terrence penmanship right now. It was absolutely amazing. English writing skills were just at that particular time. We were taking what they called the California Achievement Test, and his scores would be 12.9, 11th grade, nothing less than 10th grade, and he was in the 5th grade. This was this little boy. He didn't have the newest of clothes. He wasn't one of those kids that just had everything, you know. He was a survivor, but he did have heart. He had heart, and I just wanted, if that, before I leave, I wanted this panel to know this from my heart. I've been teaching for 40 plus years. This young man was amazing. Do you hear me? Never talk back. I never heard, even when he was grown, he never was disrespectful. And so how, you know, today, like I said, it has brought up so much in my heart and in my soul when I think back of what this little fellow was and how his life tragically ended. I'm telling you, and I want y'all to hear me. Hear me. He was something. He was really, really somebody. And I don't know where. It's like in middle school, high school, something happens to our kids and they get lost in the shuffle. He was lost in the shuffle, but they don't know what they did.
Commission Vice President Owens.
I actually did not know of Mr. Shern. Again, I was new in the neighborhood. However, I knew of his relatives, and every day, well, in order to get out to Pipestone, we would drive past his brother's house on Catappa, I want to say
Columbus and
police
Catawba.
officer house, and we knew he was a police officer. I did not know of him, but I knew he was a popular figure to get the outcry that he did receive.
So, Terrence Shern, Mr. Shern, we played with the 5th grade Bard Eagles together. We went to Cedar McCord. Of course, I knew Wayne King, Renard Shern, Shannon Shern. So we all came up together. But one of the things that I could see as I got older and matriculated through Benton Harbor area schools was that there was always kind of like a drop off, you know, where people who you went to school with in grade school, you just don't see them no more. And like Notorious B.I.G. said, the streets is a shortstop. Either you selling crap route or you got the wicked jump shot. And by me having the wicked jump shot, it allowed for me to maneuver and get out but I always, in me, look back, which ultimately brought me back, but it was people like T-Shirt and Freeze Cup and others who died on the streets of Benton Harbor that the way it affected me made me want to come back to change the reality and that condition in this city.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
To me, T-Shirt was, he was me. I was him at that age, as a kid, growing up in a single parent home, had close extended family connections, T-Shirt was the baby brother, younger brother of the guy I mentored. I look at him as my little brother, Renard, and like I say, his other brother, Shannon, is married to a young lady I raised as my daughter. And, just to, to feel that, it was, it was tough. One of the roughest things, to do during that time too was when we were looking at trying to keep things down, was to go to what I call him my little brother Renard to say, hey man, I can't imagine how you feel because I never had a brother killed. I know Renard, his personality, he was the big brother, and he had to look out for his little brothers and stuff, and it was tough on him. But when we talked and stuff, to get him, and I don't know if a lot of folks know that, but to get him to and he kind of did it. He thought about it on his own. He said, "I don't want to see any anybody else hurt." He had a press conference at Pilgrim Rest Church. CNN, all was there, and he called for calmness, Renard. And I know that was a tough thing to do. Your little brother getting killed, and you calling for calmness, But he did it, and he stood strong. He was the big brother, He didn't want to see anybody else, and he always wanted to, carry that legacy on. He's come by, talk all the time. Say, man, if anytime, you need to talk. He said, man, I want to, do something at the park. I want to get that area, have a event at the area where he, got killed. So he did some of those things, and it was even the commissioner, guy I looked up to, and I think we all, the dean, Commissioner Ralph Crenshaw, was the uncle, and so it was close, like close family, and then you could see the relationship T-Shirt had with the community because that is a homegoing celebration. It was full, and it just his name kind of just kept going on through for some years, and 20 years later we still talking.
So I did speak to Renard Sharn, his older brother, and he was very grateful that we would even take the time 20 years later. And as it's bringing up emotion in us, as he talked on the phone, emotion came up in him. But the fact that his brother is being remembered and what happened, more importantly, because the situation as we see today is much bigger. But I do want to look at the aftermath because Trooper Burton was a part of the governor's task force, which was a I guess you could say a spinoff of the active result of the quote unquote riots or civil disobedience or uprising or however you categorize it, but a lot of money. Kellogg Foundation, World Food Foundation, I think out of this. Bishop Adler and Pastor McCoy weren't able to be here, but they were part of something that was called Citizens for Progressive Change. So if you could talk about that.
Just for a brief moment, okay, I'm like, Mr. Truth, I gotta get out of here at 8 o'clock.
Okay.
But, you know, they all came together and we all got stakeholders at a table, a round table. We made sure that we didn't just get the law enforcement and the prosecutors and the business owners. We wanted to have the mouth of the citizens sitting at the table too, instead of us dictating what we think they, you know, the community wants. We want to hear, what do you all want to see in the community change? And so some of the things that came forth basically was the economics and the change and how police officers, you know, treated the individuals within the community and within the city. What the police resolved or the police problem was, of course, like they are hearing now, is you got to get more training and more sensitivity training. So that was resolved for the police department, you know, dealing with the police. For the citizens and the things that they needed in the community was economics. Resolved. Kellogg's came in, kicked in. They were going to kick in $5 million every 4 years for you know, a long period of time. So we had a group of people sit on that board. I was one of the people sit on there, and we made sure that everyone, and Ms. Buchanan, know, we even gave her grants, but everyone that was in that community that needed money to help do progressive things and to change life, we made sure that they got grants to do those monies, to do the things that they needed. On top of that, they wanted to make sure our youth and our children had jobs in the summer. So we made sure that our youth had jobs in the summer. They wanted change with, you know, housing. So that's when you saw former President Jimmy Carter came into town. They started building these different Hope 6 houses. We said we didn't want handouts. We want somewhere we could get in and work so we could own homes. So they started, you know, building the habitat houses in the community. And you could start seeing a change that started happening in the community. More money was put into also the city government because they had we had done an analysis with the state police and said, we don't even have enough police officers in the community to cover the calls that comes, you know, per residents in here. So we put money in also with the police departments to get, you know, just basically someone knew everything things that they would need in order to stay on top. We put cameras in all the hot spots so that they can be able to detour the crimes before they happen. But as a long run, long haul, of course, we have changed everything like consistency. Within our city, there was so much inconsistency with the heads in the community, just like inconsistencies with the school district, because we work hand in hand with the school district also, because Benton Harbor Area School was the mecca of the city for the young people. So, you know, you had change of guard, so things that had gotten kind of, you know, dropped off, but they last. Some of the things last for a while, and some didn't last for a period of time. So,
Do you think it was effective?
for that particular time, it was effective for, I call it a bandage. It was a bandage approach, but it wasn't for sustainable for a long term because the money didn't consistently come in for long term sustainability. But for short term, it was effective, but not the long term.
Well, flashbacks. I actually worked at Citizens for Progressive Change. And I also served on the Kellogg Grant Review Committee, reviewing grants, Landry, Washington, and all of them. How do I say this? I remember they built 2 homes on Pavone. It took years for them to get occupied. We did get the Hope 6, we did get the Habitat. But once you look at it, like Trooper Burton said, it was a Band-Aid. It wasn't sustaining. We're still suffering from those issues now. You look at the foreclosure rate. One thing I will tell you that it did expedite. The riots did expedite because it expedited gentrification. And, I'm probably gonna be in the newspaper with that quote. So let me explain it. You had the mayor at that time, because it was Charles Yarborough, then Wilson Cook was in office. I also was working, before I went to CPC, I was working at the Benton Spirit. And I remember putting the newspaper up, and the mayor went to meet with the governor, and he's like, we needed
Who was the governor
resources.
at that time?
The governor was Jennifer Granholm. He was, the mayor at that time was Wilson Cook. I felt old going back to this guy's time was getting really. He went to the governor, telling him what the governor needed, and what we got was a faith-based coordinator. We didn't get the results, and he did not listen to us. He listened to the powers to be. As I was looking at this 10 years ago,
That's you.
your brother's on the back. So 10 years ago, and it's 10 years of the riot, and one of the quotes that I told him was, one city has Harbor Shores, the Arts District, a revamped Main Street, the other of inner city neighborhoods has high joblessness, vacant lots, and resignation. I said Benton Harbor, we have two Benton Harbors. One looks like a war zone, one looks like a Martha Vineyard. I got crucified for saying that, but if you look at it, it's still the same. I mean, it's the neighborhoods. We have no development, we have no solid housing, but if you go downtown in the Arts District, you're still barely see you. You barely will see a speckle of ink. And that's why I say it intensified and brought gentrification. The governor was not listening to local people on the floor. She was listening to the pastor, she was listening to her faith-based coordinator, and was giving them what they want, where the citizens were out listening, they weren't listening. So yes, we did get resources, but then we gotta look at it, summer jobs. What good is it having a summer job when Billy's dad is at home and he can't find a job, but we're giving his son a job? That was the issue there. You have parents dealing with that issue. Those were the common sense where we weren't looking at the real issues. It was just a Band-Aid, shut us up and be done. So.
So the question is, what was the aftermath or the results of the so-called riots? What promises were made to the city of Benton Harbor? What promises, were the promises kept, fulfilled, or realized?
I think because of the changing hands of government, different administrations, different state legislatures, different people in office, it's hard to ever categorize a time in history and then see from then on out if a promise had been kept. I think what's important to highlight is that though the changing hands of government wax and wane, people are still here. People are still fighting. We haven't given up that fight. We're still here on behalf of the residents and the citizens of Benton Harbor. And whether it's city government, county government, state government, we could never stop advocating. Because the moment you stop advocating, you do get pushed to the side and told that, well, your issues don't necessarily matter. That's why going to the state capitol, as the mayor has done on multiple occasions, and advocating on lead pipe replacement, advocating to the governor, advocating to the state legislature, making your voice known, because it's easy to get placated, get lost in the sauce of attempting to implement that program.
Absolutely.
And not think about the fact that these state budgets get written every year and
Absolutely.
you need your place in each and every one of them. We'll get $15 million pushed our way and we're like, oh my God, we have to implement this. We got to set up all these policies and procedures, and they're already writing the next budget without you in it. So it's always about understanding that whether it's Democrats or Republicans in control, you need to be a line item. and you need to show progress, and you need to show good stewardship and all of those things, because we don't want what happened in the past to happen again. We want to continue to learn and get better.
In short,
But a question,
Okay.
I guess, on full of questions. Do you think that that the attitude of the citizens in some way has changed in terms of learning how to sometimes appreciate the little things?
Incremental.
So you taking us directly to number 10, because we do want to, and that's great, Pastor, because we do want to, if there are any questions in the audience, to fulfill our word. It says, what can you do as an individual to change the narrative of 2003? What can we do as a community? How can we impact the conversation of the 30-year anniversary of the 2003 social uprising, civil disobedience, whatever, however it's categorized? What can we do individually as a community? Because it has to come back ultimately to that personal responsibility, because it's our community. There's nobody running us out. We're not leaving. We right here, right? We outside, however you want to say it, but we have to change the reality of our own community. So as we go down the line, I really like that response, because governors change. This is my third governor, second president, and it's an election every. So how can we, what can we do to change the narrative?
You know, it's so ironic that you said that. In one of the tabloids, it said it in 2013, until the citizens start to work for themselves, we're going to have two Benton harbors, the downtown, which is like Martha Vineyard, and the neighborhoods, which are like war zones. I think we have to be accountable. We have to hold ourselves accountable. We see shooting. We see our neighbors without their grass hide. We won't say nothing. We see people vandalizing parks, and we think it's cute and everything. We have to be more accountable and more for ourselves. We have to create that atmosphere and environment. You know, one of the things that I learned when I was a city commissioner is I remember going door to door, talking to the voters, saying, I'm going to try to bring jobs. I'm going to bring jobs. Well, no, a city commissioner doesn't bring jobs. You create the atmosphere of bringing jobs. We have to create that atmosphere for change in the school district. We have to have a reality, you know, everybody else is building up. Benton Harbor is holding on to buildings that, Benton Harbor is holding on to outdated buildings, and you go to Berrien Springs and everything, we're the only ones. We have to get rid of that stinking thinking mentality, be innovative, creative, and let's be realistic. Is it doable? What can we do?
I would come.
yeah, try to be real short here with the consistency, as I always was taught that the operation, organization works best when it's marked by stability, continuity, and consistency. As Trooper Burton was saying, and some of the others, the constant changeovers and stuff, when you get something started and then, it's a change, so you start back over again. Start over again, here's another change. You're starting back over. So there's no stability, no consistency, no continuity. We have to learn from the past. Why haven't we moved, far as we should have moved with some of the opportunities, and the biggest thing is that, stability, continuity and consistency. So we have to say, hey, look, let's stabilize this thing. Let's get some consistency. Let's get some continuity. Things that, that was one of my things too. The neighborhood. I think this commission, this mayor here, the opportunities came. And coming from, almost nothing, Mercy takeover and everything, and now there's, we're stuck in there, money's coming, things are not happening big enough for you to see, in the neighborhoods to say, hey, it is, but there are some, things happening, the infrastructure, the inside homes, people, are getting, pipes and stuff changed out, things that would cost them money, so if you can continue to keep the money flowing, the economics flowing, the neighborhoods is changing, there's plans for the housing and stuff, but we also have to get the biggest asset ready for these changes, and the biggest asset is the people. We have to be ready to seize the moment of these opportunities. I think I've been around here a long time, and I believe that this is an era that we have an opportunity to make some lasting changes here that would be here for long after we gone. So we just have to, learn from the past and say, hey, look, we're not going to keep doing that. Let's keep some stability. There's, elections, like the mayor say, every, so often there's elections, and then you'll have, folks saying, hey, I can do this, I can do that. Do we constantly, hit the reset button? You get to, it's almost like playing video games or something. You winning, and then you hit the reset button. Now you starting all over again. You got to build back up to, before you know it, opportunity going by. So I see some things on the horizon, but we as a community have to stick together and put differences aside, and just take advantage of the opportunities.
I do want to recognize one of our elders. She saw me at the gas station. We know as Mama Lou Buchanan, but if you have anything that you would like to add or say, please.
Can you hear me from here?
It's on YouTube, so I mean, if you could maybe come to the mic, if not, you can
Right
just
here?
say it from right there. Or you can just come right here.
Where?
Sit in that seat right there.
Oh, okay.
So as she comes, I'll go ahead and speak. I think that we need to strengthen and bring back for us by us. And I think that we all know that leadership starts from the top down, but we as a community have started to participate in a mini civil war within our community. And it's hard for us to work collaboratively together when we have 2 or 3 sides of leadership
That's right.
that are participating in infighting amongst themselves because a body turned against itself cannot prosper.
Right.
And so I think part of what we need to do is figure out how to put personal vendettas aside and work collaboratively towards the betterment of the community in Benton Harbor, because a lot of our citizens can't even take the actions that we do. The avenues that we walk and the things that we do are often not taken seriously because all that they see is the friction and the infighting.
Right.
So I think that if we as leadership strengthen ourselves, move accordingly, and work collaboratively, and the citizens see that the leadership that they have invested in these roles are taking the betterment of Benton Harbor serious and letting petty differences, fall aside, then I think more individuals will take the governance and the actions of Benton Harbor serious and get invested and help us in what we're attempting to accomplish. So I think it begins with leadership, setting the example for what it is that we want Benton Harbor to look like.
Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, and I would like to say I'm glad to see the president of the school board here. And I came to Benton Harbor in 1966, and it's a tower on Bridgeton. And I was downtown at Candyland trying to find a job. I just got here. it was a shoe hall on the corner, and I went in there, and Steve White was working there for Reverend Hall, and I needed to find my way back home. And so happened I met Alma Bond, which is Terrence Young's aunt. And we got to be best friends. She was just like a sister to me. I mean, we went everywhere, we done things together. But Terrence, what Mr. Triple said was true, and I know where I was, and I was over there trying to comfort her. She was crying and all that. But he was a nice young man, played basketball. So his mother was named Sylvia. So she lived on Colfax. And I had like Mr. Triplett was the coach, Ben Marlowe and Glenn Yarbrough. But I was in charge because in order to play basketball, and I be in the gym on Saturday, you had to do your homework. So that one Saturday, Tam's mother came, and she told the boy, I said, go tell Lou to come in. I said, what you want? What time I got to walk out there? I said, no, your son not even playing. What you mean? Yeah, I said, no, listen, in my club, you have rules. No homework, no play. I said, he's not even gonna get dressed out. Now, the mayor of the city, I'm proud of him. He can tell you this. I used to walk in the locker room, and McDonald was on M139. My boys had breakfast. They were the first group that had uniform. But if you didn't do your homework, they want to know. He said, how you know so much? I've been the teacher in the classroom. And I've been listening to what everybody said, Trent Boyne, I'm praying for you. I know I could give you some names right here. When James Turner was across the street, when I had my cheerleaders and all that, then how we need strong leadership like you have the mayor of the city right now. And we have a strong president on the school board, and that's Ms. Robinson. But Ben Harbor have a lot of work to do. As you go down different streets, even going down, by the way, I'm gonna take this back. I'm a resident of Benton Harbor. I never lived in Benton Harbor. I always lived in the township. But something happened, so I'm in the city. But what needs to happen is they need to stop, listen to each other. You got so many crooked leaders in your community talk about this and that. I can name stuff I've seen done. It don't make sense. With God, he don't have black people, white people. We are the same. If God is love, what's wrong with us? We got to get it together as leaders, as the preachers. Yeah, I get tired of it. I told this one boy to put up your hand. But you reading the paper what that preacher did? I said, I don't want to hear that. You're not the preacher. We got a lot of work to do. And Trent Boyne, keep doing what you know. I got to go because my phone went off and I had to go pick up this little girl from work. But we need true leaders. And just day before yesterday, and they were talking about the mayor. I said to myself, he ain't got to worry about it. He gonna win the seat back.
We don't want to bring it.
No, you gonna get your seat back.
I don't want nobody to say it.
No. I'm just being independent.
I know, but I still have to keep it to where
Okay.
our focus is on.
Yeah, it's on the city, but Ben Harbor got to come together.
Yeah.
Singleton's daughter was some of our first cheerleaders, first place. It's history with these kids and Ben Harbor. All of them is not bad, but we got to stop spending on each other. Like Trent, you in 4 times. I'm gonna be at your recall this last.
For disclosure, Mr. Greenlaw.
So, I want to just open it up for any
Keep your
comments.
head up.
Thank you, Mama Lou. Let's give Mama Lou a hand. We want to open up for the audience to just share. You can come either way, either side, and just what you've heard tonight. Any reflections? You do have the floor.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say thank you for having this event. A great panel. You know, I just want to talk about a T-shirt. You know, I met him. You know, he was an entrepreneur. I met him back. I think it was 2001, something like that. I was on layoff, and I had some dealings with him, but we sat down and talk about stocks and share, stock market and stuff. He asked me how I get my money. I said, well, I got some stock and shares and like that. He was a good person though, and moved forward 2003 when the riot happened. I was working at Bosch and I was on third shift. So I was at work and said, man, Ben Harbor's, they going off. And I'm coming home and streets blocked and all that. And, I couldn't go down Empire, I stay on Hastings. But going to work that day at the Ben Harbor Charter School, it was just like unbelievable. I never seen the state police was in riot gear. They had their stuff all in the road, and tanks, all that. You could see nothing but a sea of blue. And I said, this is Ben Harbor? I said, what is this? It was just unbelievable. They're just walking in sync.
So,
I said, man, what's gonna happen? And that stuck out in my head while I was going to work. But the city is changing though. It's gonna take the people to come together. It is. It's gonna start at home, because leadership programs, different programs, like the Present Pillars, helping the young dads, start at home and as we got the president here, the education, the mayor, the commission, the city has changed, but we got to hit the inner city. Just like you said, we have things downtown and the people up here say, that's not for us, but it is for you. But like you said in 2010, it's a Martha Stewart or something, and this is that. Yeah, Martha's Vineyard. But we don't want that. We want everybody to come together, white, black, it don't matter. Ben Harbor is for all of us. Thank you for having this event. It was great. Some good information too. Some of the stuff I didn't even know though, But thank you.
thank you. Any other comments from the audience? Questions? So I know that because the last part of this is shaping the future, and I know you got something exciting, Commissioner Pitchford, with the grant that's being applied for. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean,
If you can.
yeah. So question 10 is profound because it sets up a three-part answer, right? What can you do as an individual to change the narrative of 2003? What I heard tonight, I've heard the story of T-shirts. I've heard the story of the unrest that happened, but the humanity behind it, that he was a young man that had great penmanship and impressed teachers, I think is lost on some today. That there's a human behind the story. We see the video of George Floyd, not him holding his daughter, and the human that he was outside of whatever things they may have done to be in that situation. What we can do as a community, I believe, is infrastructure and building. And I think that's something that other communities do, more affluent communities, that our community sometimes struggles with. It's building infrastructure that sustains the elected officials and the people who create that infrastructure. A system in which when you're no longer in office, when you're no longer civically engaged, other people know how to step up and take those positions and continue that good work going forward that you started. Because you don't want to be in a situation where you have all of these funding, all of these programs, but it all lives in your head. And nobody else is privy to that knowledge. So I put the impetus on government and elected officials to fix that problem, not people. Because Benton Harbor, Detroit, Kalamazoo, St. Louis, Atlanta, Los Angeles all face some of the same problems. So it's not us. There is a system in place that creates it where Black cities have high poverty rates, high murder rates, high unemployment. And it's going to take that same government opening up channels to make it possible to get out of those holes. Mayor Muhammad said brilliantly earlier, the crime bill was sponsored by the President of the United States today. That means that we have come a long way as well. There's a different mentality and we have to seize on this moment because we don't know when it's going to come again. Because we could have a revision and go back to the way things used to be with the tumultuousness that we're in. So this community violence intervention prevention initiative is the first step in many to solve the problems that we have today. This grant, which has been applied for by the Boys and Girls Club, the County of Berrien did not believe it was a good fit, voted it down. We had a heated public discussion. We pivoted, tabled it. That is correct, tabled it. Pivoted, we went to the Boys and Girls Club, graciously accepted, and began to help write the application. And part of the money is for internal building, planning, and research around the idea of domestic violence, suicide by handguns, homicides, why it happens, and what are some of the predications, or before that trigger is even pulled, why does it happen? And then, as Mr. Burton said, there's money in that grant to specifically fund nonprofits, community-based organizations, and businesses that do work that is adjacent to crime and violence prevention. But that's not the end. That's a $2 million grant. There's another federal program with the same name that becomes available in 2024. There are state-based programs that become available in 2024. There's programs in 2025, 2026. We have to walk and chew bubblegum at the same time. Address the problem, empirically track the problem, and figure out if we start to see a reduction, and then build infrastructure that continues attacking that problem in the long run. Because what you don't want to happen is 5 years of a reduction in homicides, and then the grant runs out and everybody runs for higher office, and then boom, it goes right back up. That's unsustainable, and that's not being a good steward or a good leader to the community. So this grant, in the conversations and building it, there has to be an executive leadership team that continues throughout, that's being replaced. People are going in, but people are learning the institutional knowledge of how to get those funds, how to keep those funds, and how to correctly disperse them in the long run. Because I think this isn't a silver bullet, but it's the first step.
I want to give Pastor Burton.
Mayor, I'm grateful certainly to be here tonight, and again, I can see and looking at the city of Benton Harbor, hearing people talk, that it seems difficult to get everybody on and of course it's not going to happen. We won't get everybody on the same page, but we certainly need to work as hard as we can to get everybody as close together as we can to continue to make some progress in the city. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm extremely delighted in what has happened in the city. I think the mayor has done a job of getting this water situation under control. They came by and fixed all the sidewalks. I don't have to worry about stumbling on the sidewalk anymore. I mean, great things has happened, but there's still work to be done. I wish everybody had neighbors like I have. I got a neighbor, when he starts to cut grass, he may cut grass from his house all the way to the Empire and back, gonna make sure that everything is, and so he inspires me to do that. And so I think the two of us inspires other people to do that. And so I think we're gonna have to learn to appreciate those little things that are happening. I think it's delightful to me to get up now and see, even on Broadway Street between 838 Broadway and the corner down there, used to not be a sidewalk at all. And so now we got sidewalks all the way down to the corner. It says something about some improvements are being made in the city. And of course, I know I've heard some people complaining about some things yet, but I'm not complaining. I'm praying that we can continue to move forward. All right.
President Robinson, last word.
I just want to say thank you for hosting this event and inviting me to participate in it. When Commissioner Isaac spoke about seeing the sea of blue linked up in command and how they were walking, I think we need to link up in that fashion as a community.
Mm-hmm.
And we should be able to be as impactful and powerful as they were in their response in the manner that we exhibit our daily enhancements of Benton Harbor. And if we can all get on one accord, as I said before, because I won't stop saying, we can all get on one accord as it relates to the goals that we're attempting to accomplish. And regardless of what our alternative issues are with each other, but if we can link up, because every officer that was linked up may not necessarily like each other or know each other, but because there was a common cause in what they were there to accomplish, they were able to do that. And I think the city of Benton Harbor needs to link up with each other as well, take our orders from our commander-in-chief and move forward and get our goals accomplished. So I'm grateful to 20 years later be in a position of leadership to be able to sit here on this side of the table and have this conversation. And I'm thankful that God has given me an opportunity to be one of the soldiers in that battle. And I look forward to the things that we accomplish in the future.
Vice President Vaughn.
165 years ago, Abraham Lincoln was at the Republican National Convention. Well, I don't know if it was the National Convention, but he was at the Republican Convention and he was accepting his party's nomination. And he started addressing slavery. And he told the nation then, a house divided cannot stand. And I do believe once we come together as a community, we will be that city that Ronald Reagan often talks about as shiny city on a hill. I got to see Benton Harbor. I'm an Army brat, so I got to see Benton Harbor. I got to see New York. I got to see other cities. Growing up, when I used to come to Benton Harbor, but I only came out on Watson Road, which was actually Sodas. I grew up in some of the best schools, and I never imagined a million years moving on Pavone and living the life that I've lived and actually being a city leader. And 20 years later, you're seeing some of the stuff. I think what we have to do is be patient, respect leadership. As everyone has said, we may not all agree. Benton Harbor teaches you how to fight, how to be strong. It teaches you a lot. But we have to respect and not be so often and ready for change. Sometimes you need stable leadership. And if we don't, we can be in a world of trouble. Thank you.
Commissioner Singh.
Thank you. I like that idea about mobilizing as the blue, C did. I think what we have to do here in the community is quit allowing the loud minority group of folk speak for the silent majority. The silent majority need to, say, hey, look, you don't speak for me. Let's start speaking up and quit allowing folks, who just come and talk the loudest and, really don't have a whole lot invested, speak for everybody else. We got to start speaking up and take our, take ownership. We need to, if this community is going to come back, I always say it's from the inside out. We got to go neighborhood by neighborhood, block by block, house by house, to say, and say, hey, it's all of our responsibility, let's take advantage of this opportunity, because it's, you say once you was 4 years old, there's kids 4 years old, there's babies now that's going to be dependent on, what we do now, and so the opportunity, I believe, is here. I think we have to get that message out that it's going to take all of us, and change is tough. Some people thrive off of controversy, and even leaders sit in these seats before me and before the mayor, and I know Trustee Bowens, the president. You hear name, you take the name calling, you take the browbeating, for trying to do something good, but I guess, they say that come along with the territory. It shouldn't, but I think the measure of the leadership is that you have to just keep on doing what you believe is right, for this community. And, the thick skin. You just have to let that other stuff bounce off and just keep going.
So I would just close.
May I say this? Or tell the brother down there, Abraham Lincoln didn't say that first, Jesus said it first.
Yes, true.
The divided house can't stand.
That's right.
And what I'd love to see, if we have a change of leadership, commission, or mayor, or whatever, I wish people would learn to take whatever good ideas are on the table
Keep it moving.
and not want to scrap them and start all over again. Just take what is good and use it to our advantage. It takes nothing away from that person because we're not here for ourselves, but as we say, for the community.
Mhm.
And so I love to see when there is a change of leadership or whatever, let's take every good idea that's on the table and see can we use it to move forward.
And in that spirit, in 2003, Mayor Wilson Cook, at that time, 2005, he appointed me to the planning commission. And that was my first position working in government at an appointed level. But he saw something in me that would later manifest on another level. So I think that, we have to, in leadership, look to the future.
Mhm.
Because we're not going to be here as we were not here. Now, we have anomalies and people who are have staying power, as Pastor Burton and others who he was in ministry at that time. But we have to reach for the next generation
Mhm.
Absolutely.
and cultivate and develop. So when we do, because the greatest sustainability is going to come through the human being,
Sure.
not through a program, not through, because people run programs, people administer programs. So I would like to see us mentor in leadership and cultivate the young that's coming behind us. So we will secure our future. And before we close with prayer, I just want to quote David, who said, "Is there no cause?" Have a good night. We thank those that are watching through YouTube, and we thank everybody for coming out. Pastor Burton, could you please close us?
Yes, sir. We thank you for our time together, and we thank you for the ideas that has been spoken, and we ask you now that you would certainly keep your hand of mercy over us. Keep
Yes.
giving us what we need, the ideas, the courage, whatever we need to go forward in this city. We thank you again for the leaders who are standing in the forefront now. We pray that you keep them strong, give them guidance and understanding. And I pray that the grace of God and the love of his son, Jesus, I pray that the sweet communion of the Holy Spirit, that he will rest, rule, and abide with all of us until we meet again. Amen.
Amen.
Oh, man.
Hey, man.
That's the leg.
I'm feeling. I know you got a little on me, but I'm there to feel it now.
He gave my first appointed position as well.
In the stream. There it is.